try to go through this quickly. It is a longer presentation than usual because we've kind of wound up compressing the schedule because of the change in the Township Committee meeting schedule. So what last year would have been 2 reports, I've kind of compressed or combined into one. Anyway, start with a little bit of background. First document that is prepared at the end of the year and filed with the state is the annual debt statement. This document is also available on our website for anybody that would like to take a look at it. And what it shows is school debt of $16.1 million, sewer utility debt of just under $10 million, bonds and notes outstanding for the sewer utility 2 of $106,000, and then municipal debt of $11,852,500. The total debt for the community, therefore, is $38 million. But in terms of what is attributed to us, you deduct the school and the sewer utilities, and it leaves us with a net debt of $11.8 million. And when we look at page 2, we see the last 3 years of the equalized valuation for the town. Our debt is tied directly to the equalized valuation, and you'll see down at the bottom, if you can make that out in the lower right-hand corner, the net debt expressed as a percentage of the equalized valuation is 0.349%. We're allowed to actually be at about 3.5%. So our debt is way below what we would be permitted to carry, and obviously we'll never ever approach anything like that. At least I won't still be here if that happens. The results of operations comes from the annual financial statement, which is the second main official document that gets prepared at the beginning of the year, is filed with the state by February the 10th. And this gives you the results of operations for the prior year, 2016, and shows basically how fund balance or surplus is regenerated. So what you see is an excess in miscellaneous anticipated revenues of $130,000. We came up a little short on what we anticipated collecting on delinquent taxes of $14,000. Current taxes, we had an excess of $1,366,000. MRNA, M-R-N-A, that's miscellaneous revenues not anticipated, of $959,739. Just to explain that a little bit, the terminology, miscellaneous revenues not anticipated, the not anticipated means that it wasn't anticipated as a revenue for balancing the budget. It doesn't mean we didn't anticipate collecting it. A significant amount of this is things that are maybe temporary in nature, so we don't use them as an anticipated revenue. For example, the rents that we collect from the temporary cell towers, that's likely to go away someday, so we don't want to plug that in as an anticipated revenue and then wind up with a hole at some point. Although, you know, the amount of MRNA to be collected will likely be reduced. The unexpended balances of appropriation reserves, that's the amount of money that was available at the end of 2015. So appropriation reserves, money set up in the budget for the spending side of the budget, the appropriations at the end of 2015, there was money available. Typically, some bills may come in over the course of the first couple of months of the year that are obligated from the prior year, and at the end of the succeeding year, those appropriation reserves lapse to surplus. There were some other minor little credits of $2,149 and a debit of $1,497. This is a summary of the anticipated revenue. So if you looked at the 2016 budget, and then again, you'll see the same categories of revenues in the 2017 budget. The total miscellaneous revenues that were anticipated was $2,597,000, and we actually collected $2,727,000. Receipts from delinquent taxes, we anticipated $450,000, we collected $435,000, and you saw that deficit on the previous slide. The amount to be raised to support the municipal budget was $9.2 million, and we actually collected $10.5 million. And the library, we anticipated 1,041,041, and of course we realized 1,041,041 because they get all their money. So these things all together give you the fund balance at the end of the year. So you take the 2015, subtract the surplus that was used as a revenue in the 2016 budget, add in the results of operations, and you come up with your new fund balance. And at the end of 2016, it's $4,719,104. So it is a reduction from 2015. That's not unexpected. We're right about where we were in 2014, and we're likely to see that balance slowly reduce over the next several years, but it still will remain quite healthy. The 4.7 million falls square within our fund balance policy that was established, whereby we look to maintain 10 to 15% of our total expenditures as surplus. This amount actually is about 11%. So we're still right on track with our stated goals and policy. Budget caps, nothing new here. Municipalities must comply with the state mandated cap on spending that's known as the appropriations cap. We also have a cap on the amount to be raised by taxes known as the levy cap. By law, the spending cap is tied to the consumer price index for the prior year. The cap has been set by the state at 0.5% for this year, while the levy cap is fixed at 2% over the prior year. The total general appropriations for 2016 was $15,352,000. Exceptions deducted from the cap base, $4,337,000. Those exceptions that are deducted are LoSAP, the library appropriation, grants, capital improvement fund, debt service, and the reserve for uncollected taxes. So the amount on which the 0.5% cap is applied is then $11,015,000. That 0.5% cap is $55,000. So the cap bank available, the 2016 cap bank available for 2017 was $379. Total increase allowed within the cap is $434, and the total increase actually proposed within this budget is $112. So you see that we will be well below the cap again, and we will be banking the difference. This is an overview of the 2016 and 17 budget. You'll see surplus used was $3.1 million last year. We're looking to use the same amount again this year. Miscellaneous revenues was $547,000. This year, $573,000. State aid, we're anticipating to be flat again, the $836,467. That's been the number now for probably about 6 years, I think. And I haven't seen anything coming out of Trenton to suggest that that'll be different, but we won't know for certain until the governor does his budget presentation, which I think is scheduled for next week. Public and private programs, last year we had a lot of some big grants. The Safe Routes to School grant was in that number, the $688,000. So far this year we have $9,404. Throughout the course of the year, that number will change as grants are awarded. We do an amendment to add them to the budget, and then they'll be reflected in year-end numbers. But for now, that appears to be it is a $679,000 reduction in grants, but it has no impact whatsoever on taxes. These are grants with an offsetting appropriation. They just wash each other out. So it does change the total numbers. It changes the total of revenues and appropriations, but it does not impact the tax rate. Delinquent taxes, as mentioned twice already, we anticipated $450. We only collected $435. So this year we're only going to be anticipating $435. That's based on the amount that's currently outstanding and the anticipated collection rate. Construction code fees, we're anticipating to collect an additional $25,000 this year, so we're anticipating $550 as a total. The library appropriation is going up $23,000 from $1,041,000 to $1,064,000. And then the amount to be raised for local purpose taxes last year was $8,164,000. This year is $8,255,000. That's an increase of $90,000. But again, because of other factors like increased ratables, when we get to it, you'll see that we're actually going to have no tax increase and actually a very modest $4.69 tax cut for the average homeowner. The total revenues, $14,823,000, general appropriations $13,407,000, reserve for uncollected taxes $1,415,856. That's an increase of $31,840. And I want to again remind everybody, or tell those who have not heard this pitch before, the reserve for uncollected taxes is not delinquent taxes. They're two different things. The amount of delinquent taxes that are outstanding at the end of the year relate to the amount of money, the taxes that were not collected for local purposes. Now, the reserve for uncollected taxes is what's known as a non-spending appropriation. And the easiest way to think of this is that we are the collector for the county, the school, and ourselves. We know when we send out the tax bills that we are not going to collect 100% of that levy, but the county and the school will get 100% of their levy. So in order to make sure that we collect enough to fund all three entities, we're required to, there's a formula, and we're required to appropriate what is called the reserve for uncollected taxes that artificially raises the levy, so that we basically tax more than what is needed for those three entities in order to make sure that we collect what is needed to fund them. If we were to not, any shortage falls directly on us. The school and the county get 100% of their money regardless of what happens. So that's why we're required to carry this reserve for uncollected taxes in our budget, and they don't.
This reserve fund is not part of the budget surplus, right? This is in and of itself.
This is in and of itself. This is as I said, it's a non-spending appropriation. It's an artificial way of increasing the levy just to make sure that you collect enough to fund everybody, knowing that you're not going to collect 100% of what you bill. But the levy cap bank calculation, again, there's a spending cap. This is the cap on taxation. 2013, we had an excess of $366,832 that could have been levied, but was not. That now has expired. 2014 levy cap that was and is available for 2017 of $423,459. 2015 levy cap bank available for use in 2017 or 18 of $654,000. Last year's levy cap bank available of $720,000. So there's a total levy cap bank available of just under $1.8 million. The 2017 levy that's allowed is $8,456,000. The levy that's proposed is $8,255,000, meaning there's an additional $201,825 available for banking for 2017 to 19. And as you can see, cumulatively, we are more than $2 million under what we could have levied and still been within the state mandated 2% cap over the course of the last 4 or 5 years.
So Tom, does the 201,825, the additional available from banking, is that added to the 2017 levy available of $1,797,000? Is that the way to look at it?
Correct. What will happen is that when we do the 2018 budget, the 2014 bank will come off. That'll expire.
Okay.
But the 201 will be added in.
Okay. Thank you.
That's where you get penalized for doing a good job.
Well, that you could look at it that way. I can say that philosophically we start at zero in terms of what we attempt to do with the tax rate and the tax bill that we send to our taxpayers. Many jurisdictions do not. They start with whatever the cap allowance is, and they go from there. They anticipate that they will grow their budget by the maximum that they're allowed to, and that's the way they do it. we've always chosen not to. And I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that approach, but it's not what we do. This, again, is just a summary of the revenues that are proposed for the 2017 budget. We're looking to use the same amount of surplus, 3.1 million, that's no change. Total miscellaneous revenues, again, this includes grants, so 1,968,000, that's a reduction from last year of 628, but no impact on, the grants have no impact on taxation. Receipts from delinquent taxes down 15, construction code up 25. The amount to be raised to support the municipal budget, $90,000 increase. State aid flat at 0, library tax up 23,000. State aid, I already mentioned, and you can see here visually. So 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and I'm anticipating 17 to be the same. No change.
And Tom, we get that number in early March, right?
We will get that number as soon as the governor makes his presentation to the legislature. So we probably will know that number next week. Normally, we would have it by now. This is a visual of the municipal purpose tax rate over the last 10 years. This includes the open space tax. I want to be clear about that. So that throughout those years, there were, I guess, maybe some years that it was 2 cents and 1 cent or half a penny. As you know, it's been a half a penny for the last several years. What we're looking at this year, 2017, is 27.2 cents. If you can see that, it's 0.272. That's 27.2 cents per $100 of assessed value. The municipal portion of that is 0.265, and last year it would have also been 2.265, but the additional penny from the anticipated increase that I think you're going to introduce tonight, with increasing the open space tax to a penny, would bring us to that 0.272.
So even with the increase, if that were to go through, it's still the lowest in over 10 years.
Yeah, that's correct. We're still below where we were in 2007, with a half a cent increase on the open space tax. School taxes, I don't need to say much about this. They increase every year. Last year was for them a modest increase of $608,000. County taxes, same thing. They had an increase last year of about $300,000. Not sure where they're going to be this year. Keep in mind that one of the things that happens with the county is even if they advertise no increase, that doesn't necessarily mean the Chatham Township taxpayers will get no increase, because the county tax is divided up among the municipalities according to equalized valuation. So as our property values go up and other municipalities go down, we take on a bigger piece of the pie, even if there's no tax increase, no increase in the rate. This table here provides a comparison between the school, the county, and the township. Speaks for itself. It's pretty much what I just went through. This is how local taxes are used. So the money that we collect for the municipal budget, 22% goes to public safety. That's the single largest. Public Works is right behind with 21%. Insurance is 15%, with the biggest piece of that being health insurance, of course. Pension and Social Security is 8%. General government, which is administration, construction code, all the things we do in this building, is 11%. The contribution to the library makes up 7% of our tax dollar. Debt service is 7%, and then the reserve for uncollected taxes that we previously talked about is actually 10%.
And healthcare cost, Tom?
Healthcare-
Relatively,
Well, this
Same.
year was relatively flat. There was no increase in the premium for active employees. The retiree portion of the health insurance did go up, but the general appropriation was unchanged from last year to this year. This is the distribution of the tax dollar. 69 cents out of every dollar goes to the school. The county gets 16 cents and we get 15. Again, this is just a repeat of the municipal purpose tax rate over the last 12 years. We're required now in the budget documents to identify or disclose structural imbalances under these categories. Revenues at risk, this budget utilizes $100,000 of capital surplus. This is likely to be the last year that we will use that, so next year we won't have that $100,000 to use. There are no non-recurring cost reductions in this budget. Any cost reductions are considered permanent in nature. We anticipate 2018 appropriation increases that labor costs will likely increase about 1.5%. Health insurance costs, I've estimated this kind of on the high side of 7 to 10% because that is where health insurance costs have been trending for years. This year was, I'm really not quite sure why the state was able to hold the line, but they did. So hopefully we'll see good news on this next year as well. And I mentioned here state action could have a dramatic impact on this projection. I think this is likely to be a big topic in Trenton this year. I anticipate the governor proposing additional reforms, whether you call them pension reforms or benefits reforms or both. You'll recall that there was a proposal last year, and I expect to see it resurface in some fashion this year, that would make changes to the health benefits program, the state health benefits program, to increase contributions, increase deductibles, increase co-insurance in an attempt to lower premiums, and then to apply the savings from those premiums towards the pension deficit. So not sure how that's going to play out, but I would expect that we will see some action in Trenton on that subject this year. It is going to be a big election year, so maybe they won't touch it, but we'll see. As far as offsets to structural imbalances, there's not a lot we can do other than to seek additional shared services and reductions in personnel costs, because personnel costs is where most of the money is, as everybody knows. Summary, this budget provides the fourth year in a row with a cut in the local purpose tax rate. It's resulting in a decrease to the average homeowner of about $4.75 for the year. I would urge everybody not to spend it all in one place. The municipal open space tax is proposed to double to 1 full cent. The rate has stood for a number of years at 1/2 cent. The funds raised will continue to be used to fund open space purchases and payment of debt related to these activities. The contribution to the library is increased by $23,000. Surplus has increased from $3.4 million in 2007 to $4.7 million at the end of 2016, and has been used to stabilize taxes and offset the reduction of state aid. We'll continue to use it in the same manner. The sewer utility, there will not be a need for a rate increase in either of the utilities this year. However, I do anticipate coming back to you later this year with a proposal or a recommendation for a modest increase for 2018. Not sure yet how much that will be, but I do think we probably will need a modest increase. We haven't had one for probably at least 5 years, I think, maybe 6. Capital budget, we're going to continue along the same path that we've been on. Various road improvements, purchase of fire safety equipment to support our fire departments, various building improvements, including repairs to this building, purchase of some DPW equipment, and possible purchase of an open space parcel that is currently under negotiation. I think that's about it. Any questions? On the road improvements, by the way, John Rushke mentioned earlier, he and I have been working on finalizing a recommendation. I think we are very close to that, and we're going to be looking to recommend significant paving throughout the Rolling Hill neighborhood. Dale Drive, Country Club, Robert, we've applied for state aid for, but he and I went out and drove around town last week and did a reassessment of the condition of the streets, and that area is overall, I think, the worst. There are some other neighborhoods that certainly need attention, and we're going to try to get to those. But the primary focus this year will be, our recommendation anyway, will be Rolling Hill.
Tom, as it relates to the road improvements, are you going to you've identified other areas of town, like what's a list of like first Rolling Hills, then we're going to go
Yes.
here, then we're going to go there, then we're
Yeah,
going
I
to
think at the next meeting, we'll present that to you. John has a map with it color-coded as to what he's recommending and where in a time sequence we think we should go.
Great. And all this information is going to be on our website as well, right?
This will be on the website. At some point, I guess, once the road improvements are identified, we can put that up as well.
And I just, I think, thank you again for putting all this together, and I do want to commend you once again for an excellent budget. And I think, this goes to speak to the fiscal discipline of the committee and our efforts to make sure that, taxpayers and our residents know how their dollars are being spent and that we're being fiscally prudent in all that we do. And in the interest of, as you say, always being transparent on this committee, this information will be on the website. We encourage everyone to attend future meetings as well to learn more. If there are any questions, certainly to reach out to us.
Can I just add one thing, because I want to give credit where credit is due. At the last meeting, when we were talking about the possibility of an open space purchase, and we intended to include in this year's capital budget $1.8 million to front money for a possible purchase. At that time, I had talked about an increase in the appropriation to the capital improvement fund. We typically do $50,000 a year, which provides down payment money for up to $1 million of authorization. And the first draft of the budget that I had put together, I did what I said I was going to do. I increased that to $150,000. Mr. Kelly, in his review of the budget with me and in reading through the open space tax ordinance that's on your agenda for tonight, recognized that the ordinance allows for the open space trust account to be used for down payment money for a bond ordinance related to purchasing open space. So that allowed us to take that $100,000 out of the operating budget and get us to where we are with no tax increase. And the ordinance, if in fact we go forward with that purchase, the down payment will be provided from the open space trust account. So I want to commend Mike. That was a good catch.
Catch, Mike.
Well, I think it grew out of the good give and take on the finance committee. So thank you for making the presentation earlier in the week, and so we could chew on that.
Any questions for Tom?
Tom, I do. If you could just be a little bit more explanatory of what is on the page that says disclosure of structural imbalances. If you, just for my own benefit, if you could just go over that one more time. When also where you said this budget utilizes $100,000 of capital surplus, and this will be the last year that this is used. If you could just go over that for my own benefit for me, please.
Well, the reason it'll be the last year it's used is because it's going to be gone. We had capital surplus of about $300,000, and we used $100,000 each of the last 3 years. So that won't be available again. The structural imbalances is really intended to identify any danger spots that you need to plan for in the future. So that's the purpose of that slide. Was there something about it in particular that I wasn't clear about? So it would be having a one-time revenue, that $100,000 capital surplus, because that won't be available next year. That's considered a structural imbalance. We're going to have to make that up. If you were to adopt the same budget next year and not have that $100,000, you've got to find it somewhere. So I felt that is something that should be disclosed and that we should be upfront about. The anticipated 2018 appropriation increases, again, that's, I suppose, any increase is considered a structural imbalance because you're not starting at zero, but we do know that, personnel costs, labor costs, because we have bargaining groups that have contracts that extend into next year. We know what the cost of those is. It's 1.5%, so it's pretty easy to extrapolate what that number is. These these are the categories that the state requires us to address.
Okay, so it's just anticipated for next year, the year
Yeah.
after, just something we take into account?
Yeah, it's something you want to alert people to, you know, if we thought labor costs were going to be going up 10% next year, that's something you ought to know.
Any other questions for Tom? All right, so we have, as I said, Resolution 2017-52, approving the 2017 municipal budget.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mauer?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
I just want to get this, this is subject to some other information. So while we're approving the budget in concept, we're not approving the final budget.
You're introducing the budget.
You're introducing
There will
the
be a
budget.
public hearing
Yeah,
and
yeah,
adoption, March 23rd.
23rd.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yes, yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
And Mayor Ritter?
Yes.